Layla was a young woman whose beauty captivated, but what truly stood out about her was the purity of her faith and her complete devotion to Allah. She lived in Mecca during a blessed time marked by the presence of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. Within a loving family, Layla led a simple and peaceful life filled with prayers, recitation of the Quran, and daily chores. One night, as the sun disappeared behind Mecca's hills, Layla prepared to recite Surah Al-Baqara. The dim light of an oil lamp illuminated her room, casting shadows on the walls. Everything was calm, yet an inexplicable chill ran down her spine. She felt an invisible, heavy, and oppressive presence, as if someone were watching her. Despite her discomfort, she tried to ignore the feeling and began reciting the first verses of the Quran. However, her voice faltered, overtaken by an unknown fear. A strange and distressing sensation enveloped her, accompanied by a pressure on her chest, as if an invisible hand were gripping her. Confused and frightened, she closed the Quran and sought refuge in supplication, unaware that this night would mark the beginning of a harrowing trial. In the days that followed, Layla was plagued by disturbing dreams. In her visions, a dark, almost human figure appeared, but she could never make out its face. This figure's presence was powerful and unsettling, and its voice echoed in her mind, soft yet chilling. "Layla, you belong to me. I will care for you. No one will love you as I do." Upon waking, Layla was exhausted. She tried to carry on with her daily activities, but the fatigue would not leave her. Her mood worsened, and she began avoiding friends and family, overwhelmed by the visions. What disturbed her most was that even her prayers became difficult to complete. Each time she knelt to pray, intrusive thoughts filled her mind. She often felt as if someone were caressing or touching her, as though an invisible hand was always near. Layla did not dare to speak about this to her family, fearing they would not believe her or think she was losing her mind. One evening during a family dinner, Layla's mother broke the silence. "Daughter, something is tormenting you. We all see it. Speak to us. We are here to help you." With tears in her eyes, Layla confessed her fears and recounted her dreams, the whispers, and the constant sensation of being watched. Her father, a devout and wise man, frowned and firmly declared, "We will consult Sheikh Hakim." Sheikh Hakim, a man known for his piety and knowledge about jinn, listened attentively to Layla's story. "What you describe has all the signs of a jinn in love," he explained gravely. "These beings, created from fire, can be drawn to pure souls like yours. However, with the power of the Quran and constant remembrance of Allah, we can confront it." The Sheikh asked Layla to lie down and began reciting powerful verses from the Quran, including Surahs Al-Falaq and An-Nas. From the first words, Layla felt an intense heat course through her body. She began to tremble, and suddenly, an alien voice emerged from her mouth. "Leave her, she is mine." Layla's family recoiled in terror, but the Sheikh continued his recitation firmly, unwavering. He cited verses from the Quran recounting how the jinn were subdued by the Prophet Solomon, peace be upon him. However, the jinn did not weaken easily. Its presence remained strong, and Layla became increasingly drained. Her body trembled uncontrollably as her family watched the scene with fear and uncertainty. The night dragged on, and the spiritual battle continued with intensity, making it clear that this would be a long and arduous struggle. At one point, Layla collapsed, exhausted yet conscious. Sheikh Hakim then addressed the family with gravity. "This jinn is powerful, but its strength is nothing compared to the power of Allah. It is essential to recite Surah Al-Baqara in the house every day. Layla must recite Ayat al-Kursi every night before sleeping. With patience and faith, she will be freed." Back at home, Layla meticulously followed the Sheikh's instructions. Every morning and night, she recited the protective surahs, surrounded by the unconditional love of her family. However, the jinn was not easily deterred. It continued to torment her in her dreams, whispering promises of eternal love if she agreed to submit. "I will not leave Layla," it murmured insistently. "I love you as no one ever will." Determined to resist, Layla responded fervently in her prayers. "O Allah, protect me from this evil and strengthen my faith. I am your servant and will not yield." One afternoon, as she rested deeply, lulled by the recitation of Surah Al-Baqara, read by her father in the house, she felt a chilling breeze floating through the air. Suddenly, a soft but icy voice broke the silence. "Layla, I cannot stay away from you. Seeing you eases my pain. Why do you push me away?" In her dream, Layla found herself alone in a vast desert. The dim light of the moon illuminated the sands, and before her appeared a figure. It was a captivating man dressed in black, his garments blending into the shadows. His eyes glowed with a supernatural intensity, like dying flames. "Who are you?" Layla whispered in fear. The man smiled, an expression as enchanting as it was unsettling. "I am Zalim," he said in a hypnotic voice. "I have loved you since the moment I saw you pray. The light in your heart captivated me. You are my moon in the darkness." Layla tried to awaken, but her legs seemed chained to the desert floor. Remembering Sheikh Hakim's words, she closed her eyes and recited with strength, "I seek refuge in Allah from the evil of what He created." Zalim's face contorted with rage. Immediately, the desert vanished, and Layla awoke abruptly, breathing heavily. She lit the oil lamp, and still trembling, opened her Quran for comfort. The next day, she recounted the dream to Sheikh Hakim, whose face hardened upon hearing it. "This jinn is not driven solely by desire. His love is a test. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, taught us that jinn can influence our lives. Allah says in the Quran, 'Indeed, he and his tribe see you from where you do not see them.' Surah Al-Araf 7:27. Layla, distressed, asked the Sheikh, "Why me? Why is this jinn so obsessed with me?" The Sheikh placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Jinn are attracted to the light of the pious, to the purity of a sincere heart. Zalim has turned his admiration into obsession. But remember, Layla, no jinn can harm you without Allah's permission. Despite the continuous recitation of the Quran, Zalim grew bolder. One night, as Layla tried to fall asleep, she felt an invisible pressure on her chest. Her breathing became labored, and her limbs felt paralyzed. The room was shrouded in darkness when Zalim's voice resonated, filling the air with its abnormal tone. "Why do you resist me? Your resistance is futile. I will not harm you, Layla. I only want you to be mine." Layla tried to respond, but the words refused to leave her mouth. At that moment, she remembered the words of Surah Al-Falaq. "I seek refuge in the Lord of Daybreak, from the evil of what He created." Surah Al-Falaq 113-12. Gathering all her willpower, she managed to weakly murmur the sacred verses. The oppressive atmosphere vanished suddenly, as if an invisible door had closed. The next morning, Layla noticed a peculiar mark on her arm, resembling a faint burn. Worried, she showed the wound to Sheikh Hakim, who frowned gravely. "The jinn is furious and seeks to bind you to him by any means," he explained. "We must intensify the prayers and further purify your home." During another session of Quranic recitation, Zalim manifested again through Layla. This time, the Sheikh attempted to address him directly. "Zalim, why do you refuse to leave Layla? She is a servant of Allah, and you have no right over her." The jinn's voice echoed, filled with desperation. "I saw her praying in her garden. She was so beautiful, so radiant. Jinn like me rarely encounter souls like hers. I do not wish to harm her. I only want to be near her." The Sheikh, resolute, replied, "What you are doing is forbidden. Allah created the jinn and mankind to worship Him, not to transgress His limits." He then recited, "And I did not create the jinn and mankind except to worship me." Surah Al-Dhariyat 51:56. Zalim cried out in pain but insisted, "Even if I suffer, I will not leave her. The Sheikh asked Layla's family to recite Surah Yasin together, known for its powerful spirituality. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Yasin is the heart of the Quran. Whoever recites it seeking Allah's pleasure will have their sins forgiven. As the family recited, strange noises echoed through the house, banging against the walls and heavy footsteps in the hallways. But they did not stop, and soon everything returned to calm. Sheikh Hakim explained that Zalim had weakened but warned, You must remain vigilant, recite the protective surahs daily. And you, Layla, must not show fear. Your faith is your strongest weapon. One night, Layla dreamed of Zalim again. This time, he was not a threatening shadow but a desperate figure. Why do you reject my love? He asked in a pleading voice. I am willing to give up everything for you. Layla, resolute, replied, I am a servant of Allah, and my heart belongs to him. Your love is not a gift but a test. Zalim, return to your world. At her words, Zalim retreated, his face twisted with pain. The dream faded, and Layla woke up with tears in her eyes, but more determined than ever. The days passed, and although Layla felt overwhelming fatigue, as if Zalim was draining her energy to maintain a bond, she continued to fight. Supported by her family's prayers and Sheikh Hakim's guidance, she persevered with patience and faith. One night, as she recited Ayat al-Kursi before sleeping, she sensed a shadow moving behind her. She turned quickly, but the room was empty. This time, she refused to let fear take over. With slightly trembling hands, she continued reciting, prostrated in supplication. Allah, there is no deity except Him, the ever-living, the sustainer of existence. Neither drowsiness overtakes Him, nor sleep. Surah Al-Baqara 2-255. As she uttered the final words, a sharp scream echoed through the air, as if it had directly struck her mind. That same night, Zalim made his most violent appearance. Although Layla had slept peacefully after her prayers, she woke suddenly, paralyzed. She could not move or cry out. Before her, Zalim appeared visibly for the first time. A dark, imposing figure leaning over her. Layla, he said in a deep, penetrating voice, why do you deny me? Zalim's path was filled with anger and desperation. I love you, but you reject me. I could give you everything you desire, he whispered. Layla wanted to recite Surah Al-Falaq, but her lips remained immobile, as if an invisible force prevented her. Zalim reached out his almost human hand toward Layla's face, but before he could touch her, a brilliant light emerged from her. Her father, in a firm voice, was reciting, And if an evil suggestion comes to you from Satan, then seek refuge in Allah. Indeed, He is hearing and knowing. Surah Al-Araf 7-200. Zalim disappeared in a whirlwind of shadows. Layla broke into tears, and her father embraced her tightly. The next day, Sheikh Hakim came to their home for an extended session of Quranic recitation. He gathered the family and explained that Layla was drawing closer to liberation, but that Zalim would do everything possible to maintain his influence over her. Your faith is your most powerful weapon, said the Sheikh. Zalim attacks you because you are close to Allah, but he cannot overcome the light of a heart full of faith. During the recitation, Sheikh Hakim alternated between the powerful verses of Surahs Al-Baqara, Yasin, and Ar-Rahman. With each word, Layla felt an intense heat, as though a spiritual battle was being waged within her. Suddenly, Zalim manifested again, speaking through Layla with a trembling voice. Why do you pursue me? I am not evil. I truly love her. Why did Allah create me with this heart if I cannot love? Sheikh Hakim calmly replied, Allah created you to worship Him, not to transgress His limits. Your love is an illusion that leads you to sin. He recited, And yet, among the people are those who take other than Allah as equals to Him. They love them as they should love Allah. But those who believe are stronger in love for Allah. Surah Al-Baqara 2-165. Zalim screamed in pain but retorted, "I will not leave until she accepts me, or I am destroyed." That night, Layla had a dream that deeply disturbed her. She stood at the edge of an immense chasm, with Zalim before her, extending his hand. "Come with me," he said. "I will always protect you, and you will never feel fear again." But behind Zalim was a brilliant light, and a gentle yet commanding voice echoed in her mind. "Layla, fear nothing. It is I, your Lord, who protects you." Layla turned her back on Zalim and walked toward the light. When she awoke, she felt a peace she hadn't experienced in weeks. Sheikh Hakim organized a final recitation session, this time with several members of the community. He began with Surah Al-Jinn, which recounts how certain jinn were guided by the Quran. "Indeed, we have heard an amazing Quran. It guides to the right course, and we have believed in it, and we will never associate with our Lord anyone." Surah Al-Jinn 72-12. Zalim reappeared, but this time his voice was weak. "Enough, I cannot bear this light," he murmured. Sheikh Hakim recited, "Truth has come, and falsehood has departed." Indeed, falsehood is bound to depart. Surah Al-Isra 17-81. Zalim let out one final scream and disappeared, leaving Layla unconscious. When she woke, she felt a lightness she hadn't known in a long time. Layla thanked Allah for his protection. She knew this experience had strengthened her faith and reminded her of the importance of complete trust in Allah. And whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him. Surah At-Talaq 65-3. Layla's home returned to peace and Zalim never appeared again. In the days following the final recitation, calm reigned in the household. The oppressive presence that had weighed on Layla for so long was gone. Yet Layla knew her internal struggle was not entirely over. Her faith, now stronger than ever, would be her guide. One morning, while praying, Layla felt a slight warmth on the back of her neck, almost imperceptible. She paused and placed her hand on her chest, seeking Allah's guidance. She understood that Zalim, though weakened, was trying to maintain a connection with her. Sheikh Hakim confirmed her suspicions. Zalim no longer has the strength to torment you as before, but he clings to the memories of his false affection. You must break this final bond by strengthening your faith and reciting special invocations. The Sheikh taught Layla and her family a series of prayers from the Quran and Sunnah to complete her liberation. Ayat al-Kursi, Surah Al-Baqara, 2-255. The Sheikh emphasized its immense power. Ayat al-Kursi is like a fortress. If you recite it before sleeping, no jinn can approach you. The Muwawwidatain, Surahs Al-Falaq and An-Nas, seek refuge in the Lord of Daybreak, from the evil of what He created, and in the Lord of mankind, the Sovereign of mankind, the God of mankind, from the evil of the retreating whisperer. These surahs, revealed to protect the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, from spells and evil spirits, are especially effective in warding off jinn. Surah Al-Ikhlas, Surah 112. This brief but powerful surah should be recited 3 times after each prayer to strengthen your faith. Surah Al-Baqara. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "The jinn flee from a house where Surah Al-Baqara is recited." This is narrated in an authentic hadith. Layla scrupulously followed the Sheikh's instructions. Every morning, she recited the Muwawwidatain, and every night, Ayat al-Kursi before sleeping. In her home, the family took turns reciting Surah Al-Baqara daily. One night, while sleeping deeply, Layla had a dream. She found herself in a lush garden surrounded by light. There stood Zalim, but this time he seemed different. His face was not threatening, but filled with sadness. "Why have you rejected me?" he whispered. Layla looked at him calmly and replied, "Zalim, I do not belong to you. My heart and soul belong to Allah. Return to your world and seek His forgiveness." Zalim stepped back, and pain was visible in his expression. Then he disappeared into a bright light. Layla awoke with an inner peace she had never experienced before. She knew it was over. She sat in her prayer area and gave thanks to Allah. O Allah, owner of sovereignty, you give sovereignty to whom you will, and you take sovereignty away from whom you will. You honor whom you will, and you humble whom you will. In your hand is all good. Indeed, you are over all things competent. Surah Al-Imran 3:26. When she shared her experience with Sheikh Hakim, he smiled with satisfaction. Allah has heard your supplications, Layla. Through your faith and perseverance, you have triumphed. Even the unseen forces, no matter how powerful, cannot overcome the light of faith. Layla regained her serenity and continued to live a pious and devoted life. Every night before sleeping, she recited the prayers the Sheikh had taught her. Her home was filled with the light of the Quran, and Zalim never returned.